Top 10 most underrated anime. These are the top 10 most underrated anime that you need to watch right now. 10. The Marginal Service. Picture the MIB from the movie Men in Black, but as a grittier, Japanese and slightly goofier organization that just got established weeks ago. That's the premise of Marginal Service, which follows the journey of young police officer Brian Knight Raider. After watching a criminal suspect seemingly off himself in fear of an invisible entity, Brian is disgraced and kicked off the force as punishment for causing his partner's death. Sounds kind of like a stretch, yes, but just a few days later, Brian's recruited by a freshly minted UN research group known as the Marginal Service. Their goal? To monitor alien monsters called Borderlanders and take down those that are a threat to society. And his boss, that had him kicked off the force. Yeah, he's one of them. The Marginal Service is a chaotic cacophony of supernatural crime fighting, earth-shattering secrets, and just a smidge of fan service here and there. Unfortunately, this refreshingly unique story was overlooked at its time of release in summer 2023, as most people were busy with the massive continuing anime and anticipated releases for the time, like JJK Season 2, Mushoku Tensei Season 2, Bleach 1000-Year Blood War, Horimiya The Missing Pieces, and much more. 9. Buchigiri. Buchigiri is an anime that's frankly quite as ridiculous as its name would lead you to believe, at least in terms of story. Directed by none other than Sung-Hoo Park, the man responsible for JK0 and God of High School's anime adaptations, this winter 2024 anime dropped out of nowhere and exploded with some massive potential, only for few people to even notice. The story itself follows Arajin Tomoshibi, a laid-back high schooler whose only goal was to get a girlfriend and lose his V-card. Unfortunately, he seems to have the luck of a man who owns 5 black cats and several broken mirrors, because instead, he gets dragged into a gang war between rival high school gangs. Oh, and there's a genie involved that lends him its powers in exchange for awakening it. Unfortunately, a pretty consistent complaint between most who watched it is that while most of the cast and everything about the show were pretty good, the protagonist himself was pretty underbaked. Between that and again, plain bad timing, since it came out the same season as Solo Leveling, Mashle Season 2, and more, Buchigiri didn't really get its 15 minutes in the spotlight. 8. Bartender Glass of God. In a season dominated by sword-wielding superhumans, quirk wars, world-ending stakes, and so much more, Bartender Glass of God was something of a breath of fresh air and a grounding experience in spring 2024. A remake of the original 2006 Bartender anime, Glass of God brings you to the quiet sanctuary for all who are facing a rough time, Eden Hall. Here, the bartender and mixologist extraordinaire, Ryu Sasakura, all but reads his customers' minds and whips up the perfect drink for each of them to forget their worries like a doctor prescribing medicine. Each episode follows Ryu, the soft-spoken bartender, with a divine ability to mix the perfect cocktail, and the customer who's being helped that night. There's no action, no flashy drama, and no high stakes, just introspective storytelling, relatable situations, and an atmosphere so soothing you could just lose yourself in it and fall asleep. It's slow, deliberate, and deeply human, focusing on themes like regret, reconciliation, and the little moments that shape us. So why is it underrated? Well, for the same reason it stands out really. In a medium that often rewards the loudest, most chaotic titles, Bartender Glass of God is a quiet masterpiece that gets overlooked by the algorithm and drowned out by louder peers. But for anyone burnt out on the usual anime bombast, this one's more than worth enjoying at a slower pace. 7. Undead Girl Murder Farce. Set in an alternate 19th century Europe, where humans, vampires, and other mythical beings coexist. Not peacefully, of course. The show follows Sugaru Shinuchi, a half-demon samurai, and the immortal, disembodied head of Aya Rindo as they solve bizarre murder cases. The writing is sharp, the banter between characters is actually enjoyably witty, and the mysteries are genuinely clever, not just plot twists for the sake of shock value. The tragedy of it, though, hardly anyone watched it. Maybe it's because the premise sounds too out there on paper, or maybe because it lacked mainstream marketing. But Undead Girl Murder Farce is a rare breed, a thoughtful, elegantly directed detective story with a fun supernatural twist to it. 6. Paranoia Agent. If anxiety could be animated, it would look a lot like Paranoia Agent, created by the late great Satoshi Kon, The visionary behind Perfect Blue and Paprika, this 2004 psychological thriller is a chilling look into the realities of paranoia, societal pressure, and the fragility of human sanity. And yet, despite its pedigree and chilling relevance, Paranoia Agent often gets overshadowed by Con's films. The story begins with a seemingly random string of assaults by a mysterious figure on rollerblades, known as Shonen Bat. But this is no ordinary street crime tale. Each episode peels back the layers of new victims, exposing how fear, denial, and delusion shape the human psyche. The deeper you go, the more surreal it becomes, until the line between reality and madness is basically erased. Paranoia Agent isn't just a mystery. It's a mirror held up to society, reflecting our collective breakdown in the face of stress and escapism. It's disturbing, insightful, and incredibly ahead of its time. Yet because it doesn't fit into easy genre boxes, many overlooked it. And it doesn't help that how a lot of the mysteries and plot points get tied together and up. A lot of stuff is clearer on a second watch-through than the first. All in all, Paranoia Agent was absolutely ahead of its time for an early 2000s anime, and in some ways, it's relevant even today. 5. Welcome to NHK. Ever stared into the void of your own unwashed laundry pile and thought, maybe I am the problem? If so, well, Welcome to NHK might hit a little too close to home. This 2006 cult classic dives deep into the mind of Tatsuhiro Sato, a 22-year-old hikikomori convinced that a shadowy organization known as the NHK is conspiring to keep him isolated and miserable. The truth of the matter, though, the conspiracy's as fake as his depression is real. What makes Welcome to NHK so compelling and painfully underrated is how raw and honest it is. It's not just about isolation, but addiction, anxiety, delusions, and the messy road to recovery. The show combines dark humor with sobering moments, all wrapped in a quirky art style that hides just how disturbingly real it gets. It's not easy to watch. It doesn't offer clean solutions or neat happy endings, but in its chaos and vulnerability, NHK captures a generation's quiet despair better than almost any anime out there. It may never be a mainstream favorite, but for those who relate, it's a strangely comforting reminder that you're not alone in feeling lost. 4. Dead Demons Destruction. Yes, the title is real, and no, it's not just a comedy. Dead Demons Destruction might sound like a wacky slice of life, but it's actually a bleak sci-fi satire coated in the aesthetic of a coming-of-age school anime. Based on the manga by Inio Asano, Goodnight Pun Pun, this adaptation dropped in 2024 with stunning visuals and a tone that constantly teeters between adorable and apocalyptic. The story follows two high school girls, Kodode and Uran, living in Tokyo 3 years after an alien mothership appeared over the city. But rather than a full-blown war, humanity has just adapted. People go to school, live their lives, and scroll through their feeds while government forces quietly fight an unwinnable battle in the background. It's a dystopia dressed as daily life, and that's part of what makes it so brilliant. What makes it underrated, despite being written by one of manga's most acclaimed authors and exploring everything from militarization to nihilism, it's often dismissed due to its cutesy style or chaotic title. But underneath the is one of the most biting commentaries on modern society you'll find in anime. 3. Orb, Movements of the Earth. Imagine being 12, smarter than half the clergy, and realizing that the sun, not Earth, is the center of the universe as they know it. In 15th century Poland, where that kind of talk can literally get you burned alive, Orb, The Movements of the Earth is a 2024 historical anime that came out swinging with one of the boldest, most haunting debuts in recent history. And yet it's barely on anyone's radar. The series follows Rafał, a brilliant young boy with dreams of studying theology, until he discovers the truth about the cosmos, and, more dangerously, the crushing authoritarianism of the church. This story isn't just about science, it's about censorship, intellectual freedom, and how terrifying it is to seek truth in a world built to suppress it. The tone is bleak, the stakes are real, and every episode feels like an excruciatingly slow knife to the gut. It's gorgeously animated, tightly written, and emotionally devastating, but also unapologetically dense and unsettling. That's likely why it slipped past most seasonal hype trains. Still, it's one of the boldest stories told in anime this decade, especially for anyone who believes that knowledge should never be heresy. 2. Moribito, Guardian of the Spirit. Moribito Guardian of the Spirit is a 2007 classic and a masterpiece of subtle storytelling and breathtaking artistry. The story centers on Bowser, a skilled spear-wielding warrior tasked with protecting Chagum, the young prince who carries a dangerous spirit inside him. Unlike typical fantasy shows, Moribito focuses on character development, cultural depth, and mature themes like honor, sacrifice, and identity. Its beautifully crafted world takes traditional Japanese aesthetics and weaves them together with a rich mythological backdrop, creating a setting that feels alive and deeply immersive. The animation by Production IG is detailed and fluid for the time, with fight scenes that are both realistic and poetic. It's a slow burn, rewarding patient viewers with emotional payoffs and nuanced relationships rather than flashy spectacle. Despite its quality, Moribito often gets overlooked in discussions of fantasy anime, overshadowed by shows that simply offer more bang for your buck, if your buck is time. But if you have just a little bit of free time and patience, Moribito is a timeless gem of storytelling worth a revisit. 1. Air Gear. Finally, for our top entry, we look back nearly 2 decades once again at Air Gear. Now, this might look like your typical over-the-top shonen on the surface, with its loud characters and flashy battles, and it absolutely is if we're being honest. But beneath all the neon glow and adrenaline lies an underrated gem that has influenced countless action anime since its 2006 debut. The series follows Iki Minami, a rebellious teenager who discovers the thrill and freedom of air treks, futuristic motorized inline skates that allow riders to perform gravity-defying stunts and battle for turf control. What sets Air Gear apart is how it combines high-speed sports action, street gang drama, and a surprisingly deep exploration of freedom, ambition, and self-discovery. The animation captures the exhilarating rush of skating like few others, with fluid choreography and dynamic camera work that keeps viewers on the edge of their seats. Despite its popularity among manga fans, the anime adaptation never quite reached mainstream heights, partially due to pacing issues and a lack of global marketing. And it certainly didn't help that it was competing with behemoths like the Big Three, which were in full swing at the time. However, for those who give it a shot, Air Gear offers a wild ride packed with style, heart, and some of the coolest battles in anime. Definitely a classic that deserves more love. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell to be notified of any latest uploads. That said, see you in the next one.